The Apple Watch Series 7 is a much more robust watch than many people initially thought. But how does it stack up long term? Let's find out. I've been wearing the Series 7 since it was released, so going on 7 months now, and I genuinely feel that it is more than the sum of its parts, like a larger screen or faster charging. You can jump straight ahead to any particular section you like using the chapters linked in the description, but we're going to get straight into it. The immediate thing that I'm drawn to talk about first is, of course, that display and the larger screen size compared to older generation Apple Watches. For reference, the model that I'm wearing is the 41mm aluminium or aluminum casing. Now, I think it's really easy for tech reviewers, people like myself, to get really caught up in comparing year on year. And of course, it does look like an iterative update if you are looking at something like the Series 6. But the reality is most people are definitely not looking at upgrading their watch every year. So if you're coming from something like the Series 3, the Series 4, or even, as some people have told me, they've come from the Series 2 to the Series 7, the larger screen size is a significant upgrade. That said, the bigger screen on the Series 7 is much more of a bigger deal than I was expecting upgrading from the Series 6. 40mm versus 41mm, that's the smaller casing size, and how Apple's moved to increasing it by a millimeter. You might think a millimeter doesn't make any difference. Lexi, what are you talking about? In practice, it really does. I've become a complications gal. Now, I used to use complications on the Apple Watch, but not as frequently as I do on this Series 7, specifically because now I can make use of all of those 4 slots around the edge of the watch face if I'm using a watch face that puts them around the edges, and I can actually see the detail on each of them without needing to tap in specifically to see. You know, I'm looking at my watch face right now. I don't need to tap in to see that I've got a lot of unread messages. I need to deal with those. The additional text sizes supported by the Series 7 also really help, and I greatly appreciate that, especially after testing a myriad of other wearables that really have tiny screens and do not have selectable text sizes. So for accessibility, I love this. The full-size keyboard is also more helpful than I was expecting. Even though I'm not writing the next great American novel on this thing, I definitely find it is good enough for sending quick messages. Although I have found that, say, making corrections or, going back and navigating to try and change a word that I might have typoed accidentally is not as easy as I would like. So hopefully the next update of WatchOS 9 will help address a couple of these things. Some third-party apps still don't have full support for this QWERTY keyboard, and they instead push you to, say, enter text on your phone. So I hope in future updates we'll see a system-wide support for the keyboard rather than pushing you to use another form of input. The Series 7 has a tougher and more durable design with a crack-resistant front and, of course, dust resistance. Fortunately, I haven't had any kind of major incidents while wearing the watch to test this out with, but I haven't exactly been gentle with it. I am, a klutz, let's put it nicely. And this watch still looks brand new, even 6-7 months later. Now, of course, your mileage will vary. This is, of course, just the standard finish. It's not the sapphire glass that's found on the stainless steel models, but I'm still impressed. All right, let's get into the health and fitness features on the Series 7. Now, there's really not too many surprises here. As you probably already know, things like ECG or the electrocardiogram app that we've had ever since the Series 4. We've also got blood oxygen. We first saw that on the Series 6. But more than that is, of course, the actual fitness tracking features, and a lot of those are actually supported through WatchOS 8. Now, yes, the Series 7 is not the only watch that supports a lot of these things that I'm talking about, but again, there are a couple of reasons why the actual hardware configuration makes this a lot nicer to use. Of course, with the update to WatchOS 8, we saw a couple of different ways to track bike and cycling activities, which honestly is the one feature that I have really decided that I'm wearing this watch for most of the time. If I'm getting on my bike, I'm putting on the Series 7 compared to any other wearable that I have. And that's because of a couple of different features. Not only is there auto detection for cycling, there is also pause and resume automatically, as well as things like having your workout stats spoken to you. I've got a full deep dive on how all of these features work. And long story short, I rode up a couple of very, very steep hills to test this all out. So if you'd like to go watch that video and hopefully make my time worth it, please go and click that link. It's in the description for you below. I do also have a little bit of extra peace of mind with all the safety features on board, specifically things like fall detection during workouts. Now, fortunately, again, I haven't had to use this. Fingers crossed I never will, but I do feel reassured that it's there. The ring-based system, even though that is no different from earlier Apple Watches, is still a really good way to keep you motivated, although I do have some extra thoughts on how to make it even more helpful, specifically around what some other wearables that are doing that Apple might want to take on board. We'll get into that soon. As you're probably aware, nothing in life is truly free, and the same can be said about battery life on the Series 7. As robust as this watch is, and as much as it's considered the gold standard amongst other smartwatches in lots of different ways, battery life is not one of those things. Now, the maximum you're going to get out of the Series 7 is 1.5 days. That's with the always-on display active. I leave it on the counter overnight or even turn it off, and then I can get to maybe at 12 p.m. the next day if I don't charge it overnight. The Series 7 of course supports faster charging than earlier Apple Watches, and this is greatly appreciated, especially if you want to just top up throughout the day, or specifically just before you jump into bed. If you do want to use sleep tracking with it, you can just pop it on its charger for a couple of minutes and you'll be able to get a full 8 hours with it. The faster charging puck is provided in the box, which is great. But a lot of people have told me that this guy, that you'll also need to take advantage of those faster charging speeds on the Series 7 alongside the USB-C puck, is not included. And this has come as a little bit of a shock to some people, especially if they don't have, say, like an 18-watt or faster charger for their iPhone. Going out to have to get a supported charger to get those faster speeds, you know, there's a trade-off. I like the environmental side of not including a charger in the box to not duplicate it, but then if it's your first Apple Watch, you might not know that you're going to need an extra charger to support those faster speeds. So there's two sides to every story. So that's a look at everything the Series 7 can do now, but with a new update to WatchOS 9, which we're assuming we're going to get hints of at WWDC, with presumably a release later sometime in fall 2022, there are a few things that I think will really boost the experience on the Series 7 and of course older Apple Watches, because Apple has traditionally been really good at providing software support for older models. The first is an improved handoff between phone and watch. A couple of examples include when I get a message coming through on iMessage or even an SMS, I'll see it on my phone, I'll respond, and then say like 10-20 minutes later, I'll get that same message pop up again on my watch. I also really hope that we see a way to flag either, say, having a sick day or a rest day, so we're no longer prompted to close our rings on days where we just don't feel like it. On that note, I'd also really love to see some sleep tracking improvements beyond those offerings about like getting you into a good habit that the Apple Watch currently kind of gives you. Of course, you have the option of third-party apps that give you much more granular and detailed information, but to see that in a first-party option, I think would really help me want to wear this overnight. But the main reason I don't wear this for sleep tracking is really battery life. And I've spoken a little bit about this already, but if we could somehow move beyond that 1.5 days of battery life, I think that's really going to encourage a lot of people to wear their Apple Watch as much as possible 24/7, because if you think about all the data that's need to be gathered to get more insights into your health and well-being, it's really coming from wearing this watch all the time, and wearing the watch all the time is only able to be done if you have good battery life. You see where I'm going with this? Overall, I really think the Series 7 is going to hold its own for the next couple of years, especially with continued software updates coming down the line. And for now, the hardware on the Series 7, even though it looks iterative, it's a refinement, and it's really making the bar set really high for lots of other wearables, except when it comes to battery life. But I'll get off my high horse maybe one day about the battery life thing. I've really enjoyed using the Series 7 for all the reasons that I've mentioned, but of course, would love to hear your thoughts about the Series 7, maybe your other Apple Watches and other software updates you'd love to hear. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.